We're almost there.
Wait up for me, Wolf! How much further, Wolf?
Listen, Wolf. I've been wanting to talk to you about something. It's sort of been annoying me a little bit, I have to admit.
What's the matter, Wolf?
That, what you're doing right now.
I don't know what you're talking about, Wolf!
Do you not hear it? Do you not hear it? Every time you say something, you say your own name, which is fully mental. And it was fine for the first few hours, for the first couple of days. Started to get a little bit annoying, but now we've been traveling together for a good bit, and I don't know. I thought I could deal with it, but I can't.
I don't know what to do about it, honestly.
I hope you don't think I'm being rude, but it's like, I mean, look, imagine this. Imagine if every time after I said something, I went, Jack, come on, Wolf, we need to go find the talisman.
Jack!
You know?
I don't like it. Annoying.
oh no, Wolf, look, there's Morgan Sloat.
Jack!
You know, I mean, like, that would be...
Yeah, annoying.
Come
honestly,
on,
I don't
that's
like
crazy,
it. No, doesn't sound
that's
good.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Try this, right? And it's just an idea, just to try. Cover your mouth after you say something. Just give it a go.
You mean like this?
That's worse. That's worse somehow. That's a problem, yeah. Oh, it's worse. I also, one other thing that's sort of blowing my mind. Are you wearing a Chewbacca hat? Welcome to the book review.
Wolf!
Hello everyone, and welcome to my spoiler review for The Talisman, written by Stephen King and Peter Straub. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my favourite scenes, the scenes I didn't like very much, my favourite characters, the plot twists, all that kind of thing, and then I'm going to give a general rating of the book. I'll be rating the plot, the characters, the setting, and just give an overall general rating. The book starts off by introducing Jack Sawyer. He's a young boy who seems to just be surrounded by death. He's lost his father, he's recently lost his uncle, and now his mother is dying of cancer. And all of this has given him a kind of dark outlook on life. It's probably the reason that he seems a little bit too grown up for 12 years old. His one escape from all of this just seems to be his imagination, and he very often daydreams and sees things that aren't really there, and he doesn't really see anything unusual about this until he meets a character called Speedy Parker. Stephen King is just so good at coming up with names for characters. I love the name Speedy Parker, and I love the character as well. He starts off as this kind of like mysterious character who's working in the arcades in a dead seaside town. And I feel like the settings of this particular scene, but also throughout the book, really help to enhance the darkness that Jack is feeling inside. I don't know about you, but there's nothing more dismal, more depressing than a seaside town that's out of season, you know, where it's just kind of like fish and chips newspapers blowing around in the street. You know, you can just really imagine it. The tide's out. It's just everything's grey. All of the arcades are just echoing in an empty room. It's just, it's dismal. It's dark. And in a town like this, having a character like Speedy Parker around is really good, and I think that's the reason that I liked him so much. He's like a light in the darkness. The antagonist in the story is Morgan Sloat. Morgan Sloat is the ex-business partner of Jack's late father, and this bloke is, you know, he's a character. Every now and then we're given interludes so that we see the perspective of Morgan Sloat, and he's getting closer and closer to Jack, and his general demeanor, but also his motivations are really unsettling. It's like this dark cloud that's just getting closer and closer to covering Jack's world. Speedy Parker introduces Jack to the concept of the territories. It's like this alternate universe. And within this universe, it's kind of like a reflection of our own. There are also people there who are known as twinners, and they're our counterparts, right? So I would have a twinner, you would have a twinner, but Jack doesn't have one. Speedy Parker tells Jack that he can save his mother and also her twinner in the territories by obtaining an item called the Talisman. And he says, at first Jack's a little bit skeptical about it. Oh, I don't know, now this relationship's starting to get a little bit strange. And then to make it worse, Speedy Parker pulls out a bottle of some liquid that he calls magic juice, and he says, "Oh, drink this. It'll take you to another world." I've got a couple of friends that took some magic juice, and it took them to another world as well. They got addicted to it. So, In any other scenario, an elderly man offering a 12-year-old boy something called magic juice in an abandoned arcade, I'd be a little bit skeptical, but this is a Stephen King novel, right? So go on, Jack, get it down, you son. I tell you, I really loved it when Jack first crossed over into the territories. I think it was such a distinct contrast between the two worlds that made it feel kind of magical. On one hand, you've got our world, and it's kind of like gloomy hotel rooms, abandoned arcades, just everything dark and depressing. And then you've got the vibrant colors and the rich smells of the territories. It kind of felt a little bit like The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy first steps into Oz. Everything goes from black and white to Technicolor. And I thought it was really cool, really effective. In the next few scenes, we get a fuller picture of the world of the territories. And we quickly learn that maybe things aren't quite as idyllic as they first seemed. We meet one of the most interesting but also the most terrifying characters called Osmond. One minute he's like smiling and giggling, and then the next minute he's furious and he's just whipping Jack, like calling him a bad boy. Bad boy, bad boy. And he appears later on as a character called Sunrise Gardner. He's the twinner in this world of Osmond, and he is equally, if not more, unhinged. In fact, I would say that the scenes in the Sunlight home are probably the most horrific in the entire book. I think the things that unsettled me most about those scenes in the Sunlight home is the boys that are being abused have also become the abusers themselves. Sunrise Gardner has co-opted them into torturing and controlling each other. There's something about that that's just so disheartening. And obviously, you just never like to see young people getting manipulated and physically abused. It was horrible. Yeah, it's difficult to read, actually, I thought, at some points. Similarly, I felt like the scenes in Oatley were really effective at making us quickly aware at how isolated Jack is and how hopeless his situation is. He's really against the odds here. Every single town that Jack comes across just seems to get darker and darker the closer to the talisman he gets. And I'm talking specifically about the towns in our world. The territories seem, as I said, a much brighter, more optimistic world. I know this was written by Stephen King and Peter Straub, but I haven't read much of the latter, to be honest. I know only that Stephen King's idea of America seems to be like a dark romance. He's nostalgic for the past of America, probably for his childhood, but in all of his locations, America seems to be just a dying husk. As I mentioned already, the seaside location that's out of season, maybe it's never really in season, if you know what I mean. And then you've got the seedy world of Hollywood that exists beneath the glitz and glamour that we're presented with. And then you've got Oatley with its disenfranchised population and broken factory windows. Stephen King presents America as if, like Jack's mother, it's terminal. And Jack is just traveling through the country, witnessing all the different ways that America can die. The main feeling that I have when reading this book is really one of just constant discomfort. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the book. Spoiler for the rating at the end. I did enjoy the book. But every time Jack comes across someone, I just have this feeling of dread. I mean, even when Jack is working in the Oatley Tap, right, for Smokey, the owner of the bar, and he kind of says to Smokey, listen, I'm not liking it here that much. I'm going to leave. And then Smokey says, no, you're not. And he threatens him in the most disgusting ways possible. And that's when, again, you just feel like Jack is trapped. Every single inch that he has to travel is so difficult in our world, but kind of much easier in the territories. When Jack decides that that's it, I've had enough, I'm going to risk it, I'm going to make a break for it, a lot happens at once in that scene. Someone shoots off a gun, Jack, while everyone's distracted, decides that I'm going to make a break for it, and then just as he does, some creature, half wolf, called Elroy grabs hold of him. Jack says, all right, mate, I've had enough. Time for some more magic juice, I think. He downs some magic juice. He slips back into the territories. And one of the interesting things about Elroy being present in our world is that it enhances the level of danger. We know that creatures from that world can also slip into our world. And so Jack can never feel fully safe. He can never feel like he's fully escaped from anyone from either world if they can follow him and hunt him down. In the next scene, Jack remembers a conversation between his father and Morgan Sloat when he was a young boy. And I felt like this scene was pretty interesting. They talk about the differences between the worlds and how in the territories they've been able to harness the utilities of magic, whilst we have been able to harness the utilities of physics. And Jack's father wants to respect the traditions and the world of the territories, just kind of keep things as they are over there. But Morgan Sloat recognizes the huge opportunity that he has in moving over our kind of magic, right? The physics, science, and moving it into the territories. Basically, what it seems like Morgan Sloat has in mind is weaponry, right? It's that kind of childish fantasy that I think every young boy, maybe every young girl as well has, of taking technology that we have in the modern times into the past and then becoming like an emperor, you know, like taking a machine gun into the Battle of Hastings in 1066 and then just being like, I'm the king now, you know. That's what Morgan Sloat is imagining. Jack's father talks about the mind-bending possibility that the territories might not be the end of the road. There might be territories within territories and worlds within worlds. And it reminded me of a line from The Gunslinger, if you've read it, where a character says, there are other worlds than these. And I know I say worlds weird because I have a stupid accent, but yeah, there are other worlds than these. Worlds. There are other worlds than these. And now I'm starting to maybe understand what that might have meant. And maybe I'm understanding the connection between the universe or the multiverse of The Dark Tower and this book, The Talisman. The scene where Jack returns to the territories after his time in Oatley is such a sweet reprieve. You know, he wanders around a magical market and tastes some food that he's never tasted before, some cakes from the territories. And when he's wandering around the magical market, seeing all these wonders, it really reminded me of Diagon Alley from the Harry Potter series. I really like this. It just felt like I'd let my shoulders relax when I was reading. It's just really light-hearted, and I just felt good for Jack, honestly, to just be away after that horrible time that he had working in the bar. A little further along in his journey, Jack comes across a tower, and you know what I thought, right? Could it be? It's the tower! The tower. But nah, probably not. There's men or creatures that are diving off of the top of the tower, but they've got wings and they could just fly around it. And it's very beautiful, very whimsical. They're compared to flying ballerinas. I really like this scene. Again, everything in the territories, I know I keep saying it, but it's like everything in the territories seems so beautiful. And then everything in our world seems so rubbish. I'd much rather live in the territories, honestly. When he's back in the territories, he meets a character named Wolf, and I didn't love Wolf. I gotta be honest. It's difficult really because I kept switching between, do I like this character? Do I not like this character? And at first I thought he was annoying, and then I thought, no, actually he's not annoying. He's just out of place. He's full-blown fairy tale character, you know. It was like a character from a fairy tale novel that had gotten himself lost in the horror genre, and you know, he'd be much more at home having a tea party with Goldilocks than he would hitchhiking down a polluted American highway. And you know, in a way I thought that was quite effective because that makes his presence in the book really creepy. It's like he is the representation of childlike wonder coming face to face with adult situations. And so, yeah, that was creepy. And so for a while I decided, no, actually, I do like this character. I think there were just too many occasions where Wolf got in the way of Jack. He was totally incapable of doing the simplest things. He can't get in a car without losing his mind. He can't handle the smells. He can't watch a movie in the cinema without pissing his pants. Like, this bloke is a complete liability. I just didn't like him. I know other people really enjoyed him. Some people like me found him a bit annoying. But yeah, I just did not like him. He wasn't boring. He was irritating though. So irritating is better than boring. But yeah, Wolf, not for me. To give Wolf credit, he was featured in one of the best scenes in the book for me. And that's when he locked Jack in the little cabin. I thought that was really good. That was real full-blown horror. Because he was turning into a beast. And when he was like talking to Jack through the cabin door, and Jack was on the other side, just like listening to his friend transforming into some monstrous creature. I thought that was really cool, really interesting. But I think I preferred him as the beast version of himself rather than the friendly version of himself that's kind of clumsy and goofy. But I don't know, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe the reason it was so interesting that he turned into that beast was, again, the contrast between his friendly, innocent, childlike self and then his ravenous, beastly self. Yeah, I suppose that was pretty good. I can go either way with him, you know? He does also have a really heroic ending as well, doesn't he? You know, where he saves Jack from the bullies. I was rooting for that all the way along, that Wolf would transform and take care of those bullies. So he was a big hero in the end. He had a hero's ending, and he allowed Jack to escape. I don't know. Maybe when I read it again, I'll love Wolf, and you know, I'll be totally different. But this time around, he was just irritating me for so much of the book. He was a liability. Anyway, speaking about escaping from Sunlight House, after Jack escapes, he's picked up by another truck driver who, surprise, surprise, wants to touch him. Like, did anyone else notice how truck drivers are represented in this book? You know, like my cousin is a truck driver, and I was reading it thinking, is there something I don't know about truck drivers? Like, do I need to keep an eye on him? I'm joking. I know he watches my videos as well. So, cuz, I'm joking. All right. I know you're a good lad. Just don't touch him. All right. But seriously, I found it so weird how everyone wanted to touch him. Like, how common is this? When you're hitchhiking, I know hitchhiking is dangerous. If I had kids, I wouldn't want my kids to do it, but I mean, it was like every single person except for one wanted to do it. Crazy, crazy. Later, Jack visits his good friend Richard, who is also the son of Morgan Sloat, and he stays at the Thayer campus with him. Richard is someone who prides himself on being grounded in reality. Good luck. The scenes in the Thayer campus, I thought, were really unsettling to read, because you know what it's like? Have you ever had a dream?
Have you ever had a dream?
Have you ever had a dream where you see your own reflection and you can recognize yourself, but something is different and you can't work out what it is? It's really scary, ain't it? It's really like, I don't know, something's wrong, but I just can't work it out. I don't like it. Or have you ever heard of the uncanny valley hypothesis, where basically a robot or an entity is appearing almost human so that it sends a cold shiver down your spine? And the scary thing and the unsettling thing about it isn't that it's so different, but that it's so familiar. That's what this felt like. I feel like the Thayer campus, it was the Thayer campus that Richard knew, but it was distorted. I really, you could probably tell, I really enjoyed the scenes at the Thayer campus. It was like, for the first time, the two worlds seemed to merge together. And yeah, I just thought the language used in those scenes was really effective, and I got goosebumps reading it. I loved it. This time when Jack crosses over, he takes Richard with him, and so Richard has kind of replaced Wolf as a companion. He's about as much use as Wolf as well. I've got to be honest, everyone that's traveling with Jack is just useless. In fact, this is the question of the video. You don't have to have liked either of these characters. Maybe you did. Maybe you liked them both. Maybe you like neither of them. Maybe you like one or the other. But who did you prefer? Are you Team Wolf? Or are you Team Richard? Who was more interesting to you, and whose company did you prefer alongside Jack? Just let me know in the comments below. When they finally make it to the Black Hotel that they've been heading towards to obtain the talisman, Richard falls unconscious. Like I say, just useless, bruv. Like, everyone is useless. Jack heads into the Black Hotel by himself, and this hotel is coming alive. He's got spiders that are attacking him and laughing at him. The worlds are kind of merging together and then separating again, and Jack's getting disoriented, and then he's getting attacked by empty suits of armor. It's all kicking off. The hotel is doing everything that it can to make him turn back away from the talisman that it desires so much. But he's able to see off all of these threats, and eventually he has it in his hand. The journey comes to an end. He's got the talisman. The next chapter is called News from Everywhere. And in this chapter, we get to retrace Jack's journey through all of the USA and all of the territories, and we kind of stop off at each stopping point that he made along the way. His mother opens her eyes and feels hope for the first time. Judge Fairchild takes his own life. Smokey, the character who owns the Oatley Tap and who abused Jack, gets a really lovely moment where he's working out his profit margin on a calculator, and then on the calculator it starts to say talisman, 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 and then his eyes explode in his head. So, you know, couldn't happen to a nicer bloke. It's almost as if the talisman is rewarding Jack for completing his journey. Everyone that helped him along his journey is rewarded. Everyone that obstructed him is punished. And then we return back to Jack. And have you seen the film Everything Everywhere All at Once? Really great film, in my opinion. I loved it. Everyone loved it. You know, I'm not unique in that. But basically, it's mind-bending. When you watch it, as you get closer towards the end, you feel as though you're tapping into some deeper understanding of the universe as a whole. And that's how this chapter is with Jack. He becomes the universe and everything within it. He's a blade of grass. He's a predator sinking its teeth into the neck of its prey. But he's also the prey, feeling the teeth of his own self sinking into his own neck. It's really trippy, and he's all things at once. It's really fun to read. I felt I thought it was so well done, and I feel like I really understood what the authors were going for in this scene. When Jack comes out of the hotel, Morgan Sloat and Osmond are there waiting for him for their big, epic final battle. Anyway, Osmond attacks Jack, and Jack just boom, immediately takes him out with the talisman. And then it's just down to Morgan and Jack. And this is where things start to become a comic book, as far as I can tell. The way I read this, the fight was so ridiculous, so silly. I should say that Richard has regained consciousness at this point, and Jack hands him the talisman, and then Jack goes to attack Morgan, but Morgan trips him up and he falls flat on his face, and then Richard falls over and cracks his head open. Useless. Jack gets back up, then Morgan kicks him in the bollocks. Jack falls on the ground, and then he whispers, "No, come closer. Morgan's like, huh? He's like, closer. Kablamo! You know, it's like, it's so silly, man. Like, it was just like the Three Stooges. You know, I'm surprised that someone didn't do one of these, like, whoop, waka waka, you know. But as but as silly as that beginning of the fight is, I actually really liked that the climax of the climax, which is when Morgan Sloat brings down like a snowstorm upon them. And Jack is kind of fighting through the snowstorm. He can't see where Morgan Sloat is. He's appearing in and out, sifting out of visibility. And Jack's trying to keep track of him. I thought that was really good, really cinematic. And eventually Jack does defeat Morgan Sloat, and he avenges his dad. I mean, I was really expecting Richard to have like a big heroic moment. Or just to do something, because by the end of it, after I was reading it, I thought to myself, how would this story be any different if Richard wasn't in it? You know? That's weird, isn't it? To have such a redundant character. When Jack finally reaches home, he reaches his mother, and the cancer is almost completely taken over, but he's able to save her with the talisman, just as Speedy Parker promised, and by doing so, also save her twinner, Queen Delosian, I think it's pronounced, and saves all of the territories. It's all come to an end. The journey across America, the journey across the territories, the perverts who picked him up at the gas stations, the abusive old boss at the Oatley Tap, Sunlight House, Morgan Sloat, bloody Osmond. It's all over. He's done it. Whew. Yeah. So let's talk about what I didn't like and what I did like about the book. I'm going to start with what I didn't like. The first thing is the territories. So I know what you're going to be thinking, but wait, you were just saying how nice the territories were, how beautiful they were. Yeah, they were whimsical, but not a lot happened in the territories. I feel like it's not the territories that I don't like, but rather the lack of the territories. You see what I mean? Stephen King and Peter Straub have developed this entire world, but it was really a little bit like Richard, of no consequence. You know, it was a means of transportation. Nothing that meaningful happened in the territories. So why were they there? Another thing that I thought was a negative about the book was the length of it. I feel like it could have been shortened a little bit. There were some things that just kept getting repeated. As I mentioned, there was an attempted molestation like 3 times. And we could have reduced that down to maybe just once. And the amount of times that they switched between the territories, I felt that became quite repetitive as well. So yeah, there was a lot of repetition, and it felt a little bit bloated, where it could have been condensed down into what would have been a more interesting and exciting book, more action-packed. So now onto a bit more positive things that I did like about the book. First thing is Jack. I thought he was a great protagonist. I also really liked the episodic nature of the Talisman. It felt like a real quest. He's trying to make his way to the Talisman, but he keeps getting sidetracked all the time by, staying at the Oatley Tap and being held up there, or the Sunlight House, or when he's in the cabin and the wolf's trying to get in there. It felt like having little short stories between the main narrative. I really liked the characters of Osmond and his twinner Sunrise Gardner. I find that in a lot of Stephen King novels, the villain is more interesting than the hero. Okay, so now let's go for the ratings, starting with plot. I felt like the plot, because it was shared between two writers, struggled a little bit and became a little bit repetitive, but overall, I enjoyed it, so I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. The characters, listen, I like Jack, I like Osmond, I like Morgan Sloat, I like Speedy Parker. I didn't love Wolf and Richard, and so I'm going to give it an overall 3.5 as well. 3.5 stars for characters. The setting, I don't think you can really argue with the setting. The world at large. The territories were very beautiful, although we didn't see enough of them, in my opinion, so that might mark it down a little bit. But the depiction of America was very gritty and real. And so I'm going to say the setting gets 4 stars. The originality, I'm going to give, we've seen boys on a quest for a magical item before to save someone that they love. So I'm going to say originality is going to be 2.5. I feel bad because I did enjoy the book. And that leads me to the overall. And I'm going to give the Talisman overall, I'm going to give it 4 stars. No, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars overall. Now, I want you to understand, 3.5 stars, some of you might be thinking, 3.5 stars is rubbish on Goodreads. Listen, this ain't Goodreads. 3.5 stars is good for me. It's very rare that I'm going to give something 5 stars. So just be aware of that. I'm so rare that I'm going to give something 5 stars. 3.5 stars equals good. 4 stars equals really great. 4.5, wow, this was so good. 5 stars, from this moment, I have been blessed. Like, I just can't believe what I've just read. I'm shaking. That was so good. Oh my God, I got tears in my eyes. That's 5 stars. So don't think that I'm judging it too harshly. 3.5 stars is good. It's not my favorite Stephen King book, but it was good. I did like it. I did enjoy it. Only anything below 3 stars means I didn't really like it. So 3.5, good. Now, you might not be aware of this, but this is actually book 5 in my 24 book journey to the Dark Tower. And book 6 that I'll be reviewing on that journey is The Wastelands. I'm really excited for this one because we're going to be rejoining Roland and the rest of the crew. And yeah, I'm excited to get back with them because it's been a couple of books since we've been with Roland, with the main cast of characters. So if you'd like to see my review for that, as I say, you can click up here and happy reading. I'll see you in the next one.